Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back for another episode.
Today, we will consider key performance indicators around surveys.
And I have Philip Winterburn, the co-founder and chief product officer at Convercent.
First, a word from our sponsor, Convercent, about CONVERGE18.
As you know, the last year has publicly brought ethics to the center of business reputations worldwide. With the acceleration of the speak-up culture and organizational accountability that social media is enabling and amplifying, companies need to incorporate integrity into every level of their organization. CONVERGE18 is helping organizations to do just that by addressing ethical transformations head-on. This event will be held in Denver, Colorado from October 8th through 10th. At it, you will be able to network with 300 of your peers, including C-suite executives, legal professionals, HR leaders, and ethics and compliance visionaries. Gain insights from 35 speakers, including such prominent speakers as Wei Chen, Steph Vogel, the NBA's Deputy Chief Compliance Officer, and Carol Switzer, President of OSEG. You will bring home actionable takeaways to your compliance program from a variety of sessions, including 2 keynotes, 5 general sessions, 12 based roundtables, and 18 interactive breakout sessions for you. You can get more information on CONVERGE18 at Convercent's website, convercent.com. Listeners to this podcast will receive a 50% discount to the event. Use the discount code TOMFOXVIP. That's all caps, TOMFOXVIP.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'm back again for another podcast with Philip Winterburn, the Chief Product Officer at Convercent. We are exploring KPIs in compliance ethics. And today we're going to take up the always interesting topic of surveys. So, Philip, first of all, thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you, Tom. Looking forward to the conversation. So,
Philip, you have subtitled this topic Powerful and Dangerous. So why don't we just start off with what did you mean by that?
So I see, surveys, I think, have an incredible opportunity to give you real insight into the organization. The problem is they are fraught with risk. If deployed incorrectly, the result set that you get can be hugely biased and not representative of the organization. And so, yes, they are incredibly powerful if you can get the right level of participation and transparency. But if not, they can be incredibly dangerous because you can be tempted to draw conclusions from a set of information that is really incomplete.
So with that explanation of both the power and the dangers of surveys, how can you utilize a survey to really test the ethical health of an organization?
Yeah, I see the combination of there's the sort of the company-wide annual, often HR-driven survey where a compliance team or ethics team get to embed a few questions at the end, down to what I see emerging much more of these pulse surveys, which are much more targeted, quicker, rapid, shorter, and very focused. And so I'm a big fan of the pulse surveys. I think it allows you to be much more surgical in your analysis. And so the measurements around that, I mean, there are a variety of standard questions out there that organizations use that everyone can pull down and leverage. But to use those to really test the perception of the team as to the ethics of the organization, the fairness of the organization, the ethical health of the leadership, all of those questions are all very valid. And if you use them in conjunction with an overarching ethics and compliance program, I think they can be used very surgically. So as you are, through your analytics, identifying areas of risk and concern within the organization, the ability to then deploy these sort of quick little pulse surveys into those areas to get additional insight, I think can be extremely valuable.
Would it be perhaps not fair, but could you craft a survey with similar questions, but survey those who might be looking at the organization from the outside. So perhaps third parties, perhaps customer perception, perhaps shareholders, to get really an outside view, but a view of how others would see the organization, and use that information in a feedback loop going forward.
Yeah, I think you absolutely can. Obviously, participation is key in these things, and so the communications around those, especially when you're going outside the organization, would have to be even more robust to get the rich participation that you want, so that you are getting a representative response set. One of the things we've actually been working on is the sentiment analysis of social media, which is another way to get that external validation, because you can see the sentiment of people tweeting about your organization, whether they're customers or suppliers, providers, business partners. You can see the trends and changes over time as sentiment may ebb and flow, which is also another great, it's like a survey, it's just an unprompted survey, I guess, to get you that feedback loop.
One of the things that they taught us in my first statistics class way back when was you have to throw out the highest and you have to throw out the lowest to try to get some sort of a sense of where the actual true range might be. How do you do that in the context of extremists in a corporation who might respond to a survey?
Yeah, and I think that's where it's critical that you have a representative sample set, and this is where not many ethics and compliance programs have statistical analysts to hand to come in and actually deploy the tools that are out there. But there are tools that can do this, and techniques to ensure that the response set is large enough to be considered representative, and then to also do the analysis of the responses. And this is where people get a little bit too focused on averages. They're all very interesting, but what is far more interesting is the distribution. So as you start looking at the distribution of responses, you can start to see where there is density and where there are outliers. And sometimes throwing out the top and the bottom is the right approach. Sometimes you'll find that there is a whole cluster up at the top. Who knows? But it's a matter of really understanding the data set and understanding the sample size to ensure that you aren't just getting the extremists, which is always the risk you take with these things. If you don't get enough people participating, the people who are motivated to take the time to fill out a survey are the ones that have a strong view or a strong opinion, whether that's positive or negative. So you'll tend to get skews to the extremes rather than hearing from the silent majority who may not feel particularly strongly motivated to answer the questions, which goes to why it's so important to have a really robust communication program around any survey that you do. You have to ensure and try and drive participation. And you do that, obviously, we talked a little bit earlier about anonymity, but giving people the belief and understanding that they can be anonymous in that process so that they feel safe in participating is critical. And so that communication process ahead of any surveys that you do is key. And then the communication process after the survey as well is just as important. People need to hear and understand that their feedback has been understood and incorporated and acted upon. And then it's like trust. You build it over time, right? So as the employee base get used to these surveys and get used to them not having negative consequences and get used to seeing action taken within the organization as a result, that will all gradually increase participation. To ultimately, you'll get to the point where you have enough participants to actually use the data with real value.
Philip, I've of course had the privilege of interviewing multiple persons for my podcast and writing several blogs over the years. One of the things that compliance officers will often share with me is that we made this change because of an employee survey, or we made this modification, or we use this information in some way. And they're quite open about sharing within the compliance community that they may have made a change based upon an employee survey. Would you advocate that the chief compliance officer or a compliance professional perhaps turn 180 degrees and make that same announcement internally, that we've actually done something based upon employee feedback, and celebrate that as well?
Absolutely. I wouldn't even recommend it. I think it's absolutely required. I think if you have that wonderful opportunity where the employee feedback that you've received has stimulated a change within the organization that you can celebrate and announce, I think that is something that will, without doubt, drive improved participation in the future. It also, we talked in another podcast about organizational justice and fairness. It also reinforces that if people believe they're being heard and their opinions are respected, you will increase employee engagement and satisfaction within the organization as well. So you absolutely have to do that if you have that opportunity.
We're near the end of our time, but I had one more question that we've touched on throughout, but I was wondering if you might sum up in one sort of section some of the common pitfalls you've seen in surveys.
Yeah, I think some of the common pitfalls are failing to communicate ahead, so failing to educate the employee base on what this is, that it's anonymous, to reinforce that message. I think it's more than just an email going out. This has to be something that is managed through the organization, like any change management communication, to really ensure, especially for the first time, to ensure people understand it and drive that high engagement. I think failing to communicate afterwards the findings and the key actions coming out of that survey would erode trust in that process. So that is absolutely key. And then the other piece that we've sort of touched on is really driving the anonymity message. If employees don't believe they can be anonymous in the process, you will most likely not get them engaging in it. So you really have to push that message hard and make sure people understand that they are protected.
So, Philip, unfortunately, now we are at the end of our time. I've been visiting with Philip Winterburn, the Chief Product Officer at Convercent. We've been visiting on surveys, how they can be both powerful and dangerous. Philip, thank you again.
Thanks very much, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you will join me at CONVERGE18. We're going to have more discussions about KPIs. I'm leading a session on this. Once again, you can get up to 50% discount to CONVERGE18 by using the code TOMFOXVIP. That's TOMFOXVIP. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you'll join me again.